So let's take a moment to talk about authentication. Now, authentication is all about proving your identity. In an earlier example, I used Bill and Susan. Susan belongs to the network and Bill does not. How does Susan prove that she belongs to the network? Well, we have several ways of doing that. The first way is something you know. Something you know. This is most common in today's technologies. We use a password, right? It's very, very simple. The problem with a password, and many of you administrators out here can feel my pain on this one, I know I have in the past, is what happens with a password is oftentimes our users forget. Right? Sorry, Russ, I forgot my password. Can you reset it for me? I need to get my new password, blah, blah, blah. And this takes time out of everyone's day. And worse off, if they forget their password or they forget their password many times, they might attempt to write it down. And that becomes an even bigger problem because now that password is written down. It could be lost. It could be misplaced. Somebody else could read it. And now there has been, a security breach, basically, of a password being out in the open. Now, it can also be something you do. Something you do. Now, we've seen this in the past with touch screens. You can draw a symbol of some type to get in, but this is something you know that you can show to the network or the authenticator that allows you access into the given network. What else do we have? We have something you have. This is more in the physical realm of things, physical security. A lot of times you are issued a security badge or security ID. Let me look around the office here and see if I have one. I think I do. Excuse me, here it is, right here. This is a prox card. It allows me into a specific door. I just simply wave this in front of the scanner and it lets me in. I am authenticated as having access to that particular room. Like I said, we see this a lot in the physical security environment, but we may also see this, some of you who work in the government might also have a security ID card with a card scanner attached to your computing device. And that gives you access. Now, the value read from a device you have is kind of like, in most cases, a password. Okay? Basically, it's looking for a particular number on a card or a particular value attached to that card or a magnetic signature, something of that nature. But it basically acts in the same way. It identifies you. And last but not least, we have something fairly new in the technological world. I say fairly because, thumbprint readers have been around for a while now. Something you are, a biometric reading, a retina scan, or a fingerprint reader, like I said. Now, those are the most common, but this is the basics of authenticating someone. Something you know, something you have, or something you are. Those are all things that can be identified, that can say, I know that is Russell. He's got the password. He's got his key card. And I've scanned his thumb. Now, usually we see 2 out of the 3 here in very secure environments. In less secure environments, we see 1. Many of you guys have passwords for your banking. But we're going to talk about the multiple authentication that they've started putting in place for banking. But this is the basics of identity authentication. Now, we don't just authenticate the users. That's not the only way we can prove an identity. We can also identify equipment in our environment. So I can say, this computer here can be recognized. Most often we do this with a MAC address or some hidden element within the equipment itself or its operating system. But most commonly we use the MAC address. Remember, the attack against this would be MAC address spoofing, pretending to be a piece of equipment. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do device authentication. We're going to say, does this MAC address belong on this wireless network? Let me check my records. This access point does accept that MAC address. This is now authenticated. Now, not only can we have device authentication saying this can go, but we can have user authentication also added. So we can have user and device authentication provided in order to allow connectivity. Now that is great, but what if the password is stored on the device? And then I authenticate the device. Does anyone see a problem with that? What can happen if I authenticate the device and the password's stored on that device? What does that mean? Well, that means it doesn't matter who the person is, does it? That person behind the screen can be anyone, and they will have access to our wireless network. Not exactly the best way of going about authenticating who's on the other side. Remember, that's the whole point of this, is to authenticate the user on the other side and to ensure that that user has access to this network. It is important to know that storing passwords on a device is considered a security risk and should not be done in your corporate organization or environment. It is a dangerous practice, and we should step away from that. We should make the users authenticate every single time. Otherwise, all we're doing is authenticating the equipment and not the people who are on the other side of the keyboard.